Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Hey, everybody. I am broadcasting from New Orleans. As you may know, there was a historic storm on Tuesday, dumping over 8 inches of snow on this beautiful city. And all the flights today were canceled coming out of the Louis Armstrong Airport. And I was going to get someone else to come in and fill in for me. But part of what's been tugging at my heart all week is being here while I'm trying to pace myself. I wanted to be someplace and just be submerged in great food and drinks and music and art and conversation with folks from all over the world. And but when I found out I wasn't going to be able to get home today, I thought, well, I still want to come and talk to you. That was my plan, was to check in this week, because as much as you're the audience and our listeners and folks who support our sponsors, you're also our family. And I didn't feel great not connecting with everybody. I know that this has been such a tough week to get through. Knowing that something is going to be horrific doesn't make it any easier, and worrying about it, we know isn't helpful. But for me, it has been about pacing myself. And Monday was, I think, for many of us, more horrifying when you have the wealthiest man on the planet who injected himself into our elections, hijacked a platform where people connected with each other and communicated and learned about news. Give the Nazi salute, and not once but twice, and then you have people who are again continuing with the gaslighting. That's not what he did. We're going to share images of other people who, out of context, and it was they showed that video to people in Germany. If you have a chance, check out social media where journalists were like, "What do you think this is?" And every person that was chatted with said, "That's the Nazi salute. We can't believe that this is happening again." One person said, if you did that in Germany, you would be arrested. And, we have to keep our, clear eyes and our hearts. I don't want to be hardened, but we can't let that bring us to our knees. I happened to be, as that news story was coming out, I happened to be at the World War II Museum in New Orleans, which is the premier World War II museum in the country. And I was standing in a room where they had images of Mussolini and Hitler as I learned about that news. And it was chilling to think that there are people who are once again falling in line with Christian fascism, white Christian nationalism. And I think that is really, as has been highlighted by folks in D.C. who have been whether it's in the Senate or in the House, talking about, look, if it wasn't the Nazi salute, then why are all the Nazis excited? Why are the Proud Boys? Why is Nick Fuentes? Why are they're cheering and excited that this is their moment? That's all you need to look to. So don't let them gaslight you, and don't get sucked into these arguments. And that's one of the reasons I'm here, is to pace myself. I had the pleasure, the honor of being with the Wisconsin Dems. I was in Elkhorn last Saturday with the Walworth County Dems with their People's March. That's where I wanted to put my energy and connect with the folks that we're going to work with to make sure that we hold the line in Wisconsin. They have a Supreme Court race coming up in April, on April 1st. There's a race for Judge Susan Crawford to be on the bench. And I think today's ruling in a federal court blocking the executive order attacking birthright citizenship, attacking our Constitution, is exactly why we need to keep fighting for races in places like Wisconsin and wherever we can be a part of it, whether it's donating to a campaign, showing up I was telling my friends here, showing up at the campaign office and saying, how can I help? Again, this is how we're going to work the next 4 years and beyond. This has never been a sprint. It has always been a marathon. We just happen to be in that part of the marathon where we think we want to give up. It's just, what do we attend to? Are we going to, pace ourselves? Are we going to finish this? And we know that we are. And again, I just got a text from my husband who wants to know when I'm coming home. I am coming home on Saturday, and I'll be in the studio next week. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that my friends Ken Mejia Beal and Elliot Serrano and Adam Selzer have been having these conversations all week. And Elliot Serrano and Ken Mejia Beal will be back in studio tomorrow. And I'll be back on the air, but just Monday and Tuesday, because I thought I was going to Los Angeles, which I am canceling those plans. The air quality is not safe for me to go, and they have so many other things that my friends need to attend to, their neighbors and friends and community that they need to support and uplift. It has been I was talking to my friends here about how hard 2025 has been already. And I really, I'll be in town next week. Maybe I'll see if my fill-in hosts, Dwayne Kennedy and Adam Burke, will let me swing by and chat with them too. But I'll be off again next Wednesday through Friday. I am having a great time here. This snowstorm, you guys, it's not the same when you're someplace that just doesn't know and doesn't have the experience of a snowstorm. The biggest snowfall they had prior to Tuesday was in 1963 with only 2.7 inches, and this snowfall on Tuesday was over 8 inches. And it brought New Orleans to a halt in many places of Louisiana, because imagine, they don't have the sort of infrastructure and the resources when it comes to dealing with ice and snow. By late afternoon, early evening, the snow started turning into this massive sheet of ice everywhere. The streets had I would say the ice was probably about 4 to 5 inches deep in some places. So you don't even want to be on the streets if there are cars rolling down the street, because no one here knows how to drive on ice. They do not have salt trucks necessarily at this level. And actually, I heard this story. There were some folks that own a snowplow company in Indiana, and seeing the forecast, they decided to drive down to Louisiana and provide their services, and they made the right call. So there have been folks coming in from different parts of the country to help New Orleans and other parts of Louisiana open back up, because you have to imagine a town that not only relies on tourism when it comes to hotels and restaurants. The street performers, the folks that give that element of magic in New Orleans are already struggling. They, obviously their best months are when it's warm, when it's temperate. And then you have the terrorist attack of January 1st, shutting things down. And now this snowstorm that really, there were only, I would say, in our walks around Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, there were just a handful of restaurants open, a few bars that were open. Restaurants are running out of food because they can't get deliveries. But my friends are telling me, in contrast to when they've had hurricanes or lose power, at least the restaurants are able to, the power never went out here. But there is a lot of ice. Again, chunks of ice coming down. The streets are filling with water as the temperatures rise. And again, this was the most snowfall New Orleans has had in any of our lifetimes. No one has lived. I mean, if I'm going to be somewhere at an interesting time, you might as be where no one in our lifetimes has seen snowfall in New Orleans this extreme. And it's really a community that comes together, that supports each other. The restaurants are providing a lot of support to tourists. There are hotels. If people are working in the hotels, they're having their staff. And, of course, they want them to be able to show up for the tourists, but they're letting them stay on property and have that power. I talked to an engineer from one of the hotels. I've talked to some of the cooks and chefs. There was a massive snowball fight in the French Quarter. If you go online, you can see someone playing hockey on Canal Street. And when you're someplace where they just have never seen this before, there were kids building snowmen. There were, performers. I'll post a video soon of some of the musicians that were performing on Bourbon Street yesterday and today. And it is an incredible trip. And at the same time, I'm someplace where this is a blue city in an extremely red area. And they don't have access to the kinds of things that we take for granted in Illinois. We know are vulnerable. I would say top of mind for me here has been the access to health care for women And I don't know if you're following Heartland Signal, the newsroom, and you should. You can follow them online on Twitter and other social media platforms like Instagram, as well as their website, our website, heartlandsignal.com. But the former president of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Cecile Roberts, passed away after a battle with brain cancer, and a conservative, a Republican state legislator from Minnesota said that she is where she belongs, that she belongs in hell. And it's so symbolic of what I think so many of us are concerned about, have fears about, with these emboldened so-called Christians who are wishing ill on people, damning them to hell. And I made a video in response to these comments by this conservative legislator out of Minnesota, and that it's just how horrible. What a horrible comment from so-called pro-lifers who have no concern for the fact that there are women who will die without being able to have access to abortion care. And so check out their social media platforms for Heartland Signal, and you'll find my video, I believe, will be coming up soon. And I lined up a fun, somewhat, different conversations. I'd love to hear from you. The text line is open. I also have the phone lines are open. Lady B is back at the studio. We have one listener said, great to hear your voice tonight. Check out the image activists projected on the Germany Tesla plant. Yeah, people around the world will tell us that we are in a very vulnerable position when we have a Nazi seriously, there's no other way to say it, but a Nazi like Elon Musk. It's such a I only watched a little bit of the footage from the inauguration, but I certainly saw all I needed to see. But let's take a break here. If you want to call in or text 773-763-9278. We have the phone lines open. We'll also check in with my friend Susanna Flores, who's my wonderful hostess here in New Orleans, and talk a little about this historic snowfall, but also about how to pace ourselves, manage our emotions. She's a psychologist and an author, and I want to check in with her about how we approach taking in our news on social media or other platforms or other ways. And then at 6 o'clock, we're going to check with our friend Gwen Levy, who, of course, you know from the song Barefoot and Pregnant with Gwen Levy and the Breakdown. So she'll check in and tell us how her week went leading up to the inauguration, including the fundraiser, the anti-inauguration event she was at in D.C. on Monday. And I think she got some fun news to share with us. So we'll check in with her at 6. And at 6:30, I thought we would catch up with the cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune and other sites. Scott Stantis will join us at 6:30. So let's take a break here. We'll continue the conversation when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Hey, folks. I hope that you are happy, healthy, and safe wherever you are right now. And I know it's hard to do considering the barrage of news, the executive orders, the reactions to a Nazi salute, the rumors and the fears of ICE raids scooping up, separating families. There are families in Chicago and other parts of the country. They're afraid to send their kids to school because they're afraid that they might not come home, or they won't be there when they come home, that they will be separated. We are still trying to connect. I believe it's over 1,400 children from the last time Donald was in office. Just to name some of some of the stories that we're consuming. I'm grateful that we live in a city where City Hall did vote to decline cooperating with ICE. And, there are a lot of rumors. I do want to tell you, if you're on social media and you hear reports of a raid happening somewhere there's a lot of fear going on right now. So if you have information that you can verify, find ways to share that in a way that is quantifiable, that you can back that up, so that we're not kind of circulating all these stories. I'm saying that as someone who has been way too quick with my thumbs to repost a story only to find out later that was not accurate. So let's take a breath before you share something, and definitely if you must engage and argue on social media, please pick and choose. Don't go after every stupid fight. I mean, like last night, I had to delete a few things. We have on our Facebook page, as I encourage you to share and follow the Patti Vasquez Show page. Jerry, my co-producer, posted a sign, a meme. We do react to images, but I would rather live next to somebody who flew the pride flag, the pride flag, rather than somebody who flies the swastika or the Confederate flag or a Trump flag. And a lot of people jumping on you guys defending the Confederate flag, defending the swastika. Not even like the Trump flag, notwithstanding. Like they want to give us the history and the background and the context of people who want to destroy anyone who doesn't look like they do or believe what they do. And I'm sorry, but to me, that's what a Confederate flag stands for, and that's what the swastika stands for. And it's just jarring, and I'm really trying so hard. I was at if you're familiar with New Orleans, there's a famous bar. It's the Carousel Bar in Hotel Monteleone, and it's really hard to get seats there. I fortunately twice now, the only times I've ever tried, I have gotten a seat. My friend Susie and I sat down for a drink, and this woman was sitting there, and she was very cheerful and had I could tell she was a Midwesterner like me, and she was from Door County. And honestly, you guys, I am not bringing up what's happening at all. It was a day after the inauguration. It was during the storm. Or maybe it was a day of the inauguration. It's all blending together. No, it was Monday. It was that day. And you guys, it was, she went into this rant about how, I said it was from Chicago, and how she was going on about how badly we vote. We don't know what's in our own right interests, how corrupt our city is. And we got a pretty good idea of which way her politics went. And I honestly, I engaged with her briefly. I told her that I work with the Walworth Dems, that I volunteer in her state as a Democrat, going door to door, talking to people about and messaging basically the mission of Democrats, which is to protect the rights and freedoms of all. And I said, including, the fact that in Wisconsin, after Roe v. Wade, they were vulnerable to reverting back to a law in the 1850s outlawing abortion across the board. And here's the thing. She was like, oh, well, I can understand that. And then promptly launched into a whole thing about bathrooms. And I honestly, if I had that all to do again, and believe me, situationally, what you want to say to somebody, I wish I had just said, oh, I didn't realize you're just dumb. And just turn around and end it there. That's from now on. When I feel, I'm not going to argue with somebody and people will tell me, "Oh, you're going to alienate more people." She is so dedicated and committed to this idea that men don't belong in women's bath. And I asked her, I honestly tried to engage. I'm like, "Do you use porta potties? What do you care who was in that stall before you? You're not trapped. A women's bathroom is just not this place of danger. Nobody." And I've said this over and over again, nobody leaves the house thinking, I can't wait to use a public bathroom. And they have given this country over to white Christian nationalists over the fear propagated by billionaires and corporations. They're the ones that are amplifying this idea that trans women are a threat to us, and they simply are not. So if I had to do over again, instead of trying to negotiate with her about what it really means to fight for people, a small portion of people who deserve dignity and respect, she said, well, I have my line in the sand. And I'm like, or the penis on the body. And then she knew I had no problem going there, and she turned around and started talking to someone else. But I wish I had just said, oh, I didn't realize you're just dumb. That's all. I don't know any other way to deal with that. Anyway, let's get to a phone call. Jim, you on the line? What's on your mind, my friend?
Hi, Patty. I thought the bridge was frozen. I saw the bridge yesterday coming out of Orleans, and it was said. So I was thinking, could she get to the airport on that bridge? Because nothing worse than. How'd you get out of there?
No, I'm not out of there. I'm in New Orleans. The airport was closed today because people can't. A lot of people who work at the airport. Actually, the World War II Museum has been closed. A lot of restaurants. A lot of folks can't get to those. They can't staff anything right now. I don't even know if flights will be getting out on schedule tomorrow. But I will be.
I see. I'm sorry, dear.
I mean, Jim. Yeah. No, not for nothing. But there's nothing wrong with staying a few more days in New Orleans. Am I right, Jim?
No, you're exactly right. But the weird part about it was you went to escape this insanity, the inauguration, which was a beautiful thing. But then you walk into the largest snowstorm in the history of New Orleans and down south down there.
You're not wrong.
And then, yeah, I know, but not only that, Patty, but you're right. By the time those poor people, by the time they figure out how to drive to the airport and go back to work and everything like that, God knows. But anyway, Patty, you missed Tuesday's breakfast, prayer breakfast. The bishop says, "You are the meanest. You're the cruelest. Anybody who chases around immigrants and so on and so forth has no mercy."
Yep. She was magnificent. Yeah,
she was fabulous. But Patty, I mean, you think if you're sitting in a church, you're going to hear that sermon. But to those people, it was like nails on a chalkboard. But what's interesting about that family, remember, his sons, they got caught cheating, stealing from their own charity. They were sent to charity school. Now, remember, they're 40 or 50 years old, and their own man's a billionaire, right? Could you imagine, Patty, if your dad was a billionaire and you were 50, and you don't know how to run a charity? You had to go to charity school?
Yep.
Can you imagine? Imagine that. I mean, so what are the hotel? What's the like? Where are you staying?
I'm staying with friends of mine. They're right off of. They're right on
good. That's right. That's right. You got a girlfriend down there. That's right. Yeah, good.
Wonderful.
Because
very lucky.
It could be about a week. I heard your voice. I thought, well, she got back, but I just got in where I got some groceries. Anyway, Patty, thanks for taking my call.
Well, Jim, as you know, it's always great. It's always great to hear your voice. I'm glad. Now we will be doing wellness checks with you if we don't hear from you after a day. Okay, my friend.
Stop it! No, stop it! Don't be silly. I'll do a wellness check for you. You don't get back from New Orleans pretty quick. Anyway.
Fair. That's fair, Jim. Thank you so much.
All right, Patty. Take care. Take care,
you too. I got a text from a listener who asks me to talk about Medicaid and advocating for it with the ARC. And I want to have my friends back on from the ARC of Illinois. The ARC works really just so hard on making sure that the future of people with disabilities is protected. Illinois is one of the worst states in the country when it comes to services for the disabled, including housing. We tend to rely on because there's such a big push by private investors, hedge fund investors, in the space of whether it's elder care or disability care to put people in homes rather than provide as much independence as possible. And Medicaid plays a huge role in that. And we know that incoming possible head of the Department of the Health Department is going to be a Department of Human Services, Health and Human Services. I'll get it all together, folks. But Robert Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr., has some pretty extreme views on health care. And the incoming head of Medicare and Medicaid, possibly Dr. Oz, doesn't think that Americans have a right to health care, that they have a right to access, but not necessarily the ability to have access to preventable health care. He thinks that if you can't afford to go see your doctor regularly, or if you're underinsured or uninsured, you should just go to a health fair and get everything done in 15 minutes. And good freaking luck is pretty much the attitude there. So let me take a look at the information that my friend has sent me from the ARC of Illinois and their work to advocate for Medicare and Medicaid, because there is, and I'll look through this, but I do know in Illinois there are about 11 states that have trigger language that basically suspends Medicaid and Medicare if the federal funding falls below a certain level. And right now, Medicaid, I'm looking at the information right now that I do know that millions of children and adults with disabilities rely on Medicaid for the support they need to live in their communities and their health care coverage. And you know that this is one of the hills I'm willing to die on. I do my best to make sure that we're going to be able to have at least financially enough resources to support Declan and his brother Griffin, who, when we're gone, will be responsible, or the people that we don't know now and have not met yet, who will be taking care of Declan for the rest of his life once we're not able to do it anymore. Parents like me and my husband, we often think, I can't die first, and I know that sounds grim to folks. And it doesn't mean we want him to go first. Of course, I can't imagine a day without my beautiful boy. But the idea being that it's hard to imagine how our beautiful children and loved ones will be cared for when we can't. And Medicaid is one of the programs that provides the support the care and the ability to believe in a better tomorrow for our kids. And right now, Medicaid is underfunded and does not meet the current needs of people with disabilities and their families. I'm reading from the ARC.org's website. That's the ARC, ARC.org, if you want to get more information. And you want to be able to write a letter to your electeds. You can send an email to your officials with one click. So go to action.thearc.org for that page and have access to that. But when services are funded, people with disabilities get the help to get out of bed in the morning, take their medications, get to work, and participate in their communities. Almost 711,000 people with disabilities nationwide are still on the waiting list for services that they are eligible to receive because we don't have enough funding. And we are struggling in the state of Illinois with even programs for babies to 3 years old. Early intervention right now is underfunded and is also struggling to get more workers. There is a year wait. A year wait. Now think of that. From birth to 3 years old, we are still not able to fund early intervention to make sure that these babies have the ability to reach their potential. And I will tell you, if you miss those crucial years, for folks who think, oh, well, we can't afford it, or, we're doing if you can't invest in babies to the point where they're able to reach their potential, you will be paying for that for the rest of their lives in support services, and we are only getting worse here. So let me take a break here. We'll continue our conversation when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, and I'm broadcasting live from the French Quarter in New Orleans, where the ice is melting, but the chill's in the air, just like it is for everybody across the country who just is trying to deal with the new round of Trump. More in a moment.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
I am so excited to welcome my friend, Dr. Susana Flores, who's also been gracious enough to be my hostess here in New Orleans. We are driving it home from New Orleans, where they had a historic snowfall. Dr. Susana Flores is an author, a psychologist. She's also talked us through the trauma and the days following the terrorist attack here in New Orleans. But let's start. First of all, hey, Doc, thank you so much for having me in your beautiful home.
Oh, thank you for being here. We love you here.
I did tell them a little bit about Monday when we were at the at the Carousel Bar, just trying to enjoy ourselves. And I really wish I just told that woman she was just dumb. But at any rate,
you mean like when we were drinking, drinking our sorrow away? Yes, absolutely, yeah. And she was dumb.
What we didn't know that day, I was telling the audience about how we were in the World War II Museum, which I highly recommend to everybody. Even Dr. Susana Flores hasn't seen every exhibit there, but we were in this, the first room where you see Hitler and Mussolini as we were learning about Elon Musk. Now, before we talk more about that, let me first talk about the storm, because let's do it in that order,
okay.
And then we'll move on to the inauguration and the days and how to pace ourselves over whatever the next days, weeks, and months to come. But first, you are a Chicago transplant. Mm-hmm. This is a historic snowfall. So tell me a little bit, fill us in a little bit about the dynamics behind what happened, and share with folks the difference of having a snowstorm here than anywhere else.
Okay, so first of all, I left Chicago for a reason, right? And you brought up here.
No.
Yeah. Like everyone has been blaming you because it's true. Like here we are, Louisiana. Like we're having a great time, beautiful weather, right? Great food, great music, and then all of a sudden you land, right? And all of this. Nice word. I was going to say a bad word. All of this nasty snow,
okay.
Right? All this nasty snow. And it wasn't just a little, like, it was super downfall, right? And so, like, all these Southerners are like, we're going to die, right? Like, I can't feel my hands, right? Like, no one knew what to do with themselves. Oh. And so, luckily, some of us had snow boots, and I had them because I visit Chicago, like, I visit my parents from time to time. But, yeah, it's entirely your fault. And so, but aside from that, no, it's been fun. There's been snowball fights. There's been ice skating. There's been skiing. All the pets are like, what in the hell is going on? But it's an event. Apparently, as we found out from locals that are more local than me, that they haven't had a snowstorm like this for the past, 120-something years. And then again, Patty arrives. And then there's this major snowstorm. So we've been doing museums and trying to find a place to eat. Imagine being in NOLA in the quarter, and there is no place to eat. That's there's no word, right? It's a juxtaposition. Like, that's not possible, right? And so we're like, okay, maybe this diner, maybe this bar will take pity on us, right? And and the roads were all closed, and that's why nothing's open, because it was too treacherous for people to try to get here. So we've been like, we're like Chicagoans, right? Like, we're hibernating, in this weather that Patti brought.
And I also want to talk a little bit about, one of the reasons I came here. I had already planned to come here before the terrorist attack on January 1st. And you were telling me about, the feast or famine in this town for folks who are artists, who are, so invested in the tourism economy. So this has to be whether it was New Year's Eve and the fallout from that and the snowstorm, this is rough for folks. So what I'm saying is I want people to think about coming to New Orleans. And when you come here to support local artists, tell us a little bit about that scene.
Oh, so there's definitely, so in Jackson Square, you will find a bunch of artists, you'll find musicians, you'll find psychics. It's so interesting because you have like the big Catholic cathedral, and right outside, it's part of the culture, right? Like, everybody welcomes everybody. And then also the Frenchman Street. I have several friends who sell art there and photography and everything. So because everything's shut down and it's been bitter cold, nobody's in business right now. So the city is going to take a hit. And we were also talking about, during Taylor Swift, that was great for the economy here, right? Because you have all these Swifties around. I didn't even know what a bracelet was and all this, right? I'm getting educated by all the Swifties, and they were so nice. It really helped the economy, but something like this is going to hurt. So people will probably be out of work for, 2 days? So probably 2 more, most likely.
Yeah, I was thinking, and we talked about this earlier today with some other folks who are from here, who we had a great conversation at Clyde's Corner Bar, and we were talking about Amtrak. When I last came here last spring, I took Amtrak, and I didn't realize the rich history and the dynamic between Chicago and New Orleans, and I really think that needs to be highlighted. I think that Amtrak is missing out on the sort of the history of whether it's a black migration from New Orleans or the South to Chicago, the blues, the jazz, and I want folks to think about that. You can do this affordably, I think, come to New Orleans. It's not cheap to eat and drink here, but I think getting here, if you take Amtrak and you can, stop in Yazoo, Mississippi or Memphis, I think that you'd have a really great time. What do you want folks to know when they think about planning a trip here? Like, would they do 3-4 days? What would you recommend that folks do?
I'd recommend probably at least a week. If you can, because there's so much to see. We saw the WW Museum, as you mentioned, the WW2 Museum, and I mean, it would take you a week alone, just if not more. There's 7 buildings or something?
Oh my God!
It's massive, and you leave a different person. You get a perspective of everything, the road to Tokyo, the road to Berlin, the road to and the effects for all of these countries together. And so that's just one of many examples in museums, and there's much more than the Quarter. And yes, the Quarter is amazing. The Frenchman Street is my personal favorite, but especially for Chicagoan, I love being here. We just met some Chicagoans tonight. Well, there's so many similarities, right? We're kind of sister cities because there's jazz, there's blues, there's great food, there's culture, there's diversity, all the stuff that we love in Chicago too. Obviously, on a much smaller scale and a much warmer, scale until Patti arrived, and then. She's right here laughing. Because you messed it all up. But yeah, no. But you brought us a historical event. You should be very who can say that, right? Who can say you brought a historical event to a city? But yeah, I recommend it. Chicago will always have my heart. I'm a South Side girl, born and raised, and will always have my heart. I visit often, but I think any Chicagoan would really love NOLA.
I agree. Well, and so part of the reason, I guess we can turn our attention to why I came here was I was trying to think in the weeks leading up to the inauguration, how do I want to greet that first day? And because I know I'm going to be working so much for the next 4 years, I thought I don't have the bandwidth to freak out on day one. If I'm sitting there watching, and I look, and I also, I think being a little bit, I wanted to remove myself and prepare myself mentally, enjoy the things that I love, food, drink, music, good company. So tell us a little bit about, finding those ways. So to remind ourselves why we care so much, I think is part of it too, and how to pace ourselves.
It's all about mental health. And I'll say that as a psychologist, right? Like, we have to, like, self-care first and foremost. So I think that's why you came down here, right? And it's part about being a community, and NOLA is a community. You could sit down at any bar or any establishment, and you are speaking to people. We experience this many times here. And people you have a lot of stuff in common with, as it turns out, and interesting people. But it was very helpful. We just had this discussion today because while you were here, I thought about it minimally, right? Or as minimally as possible compared, because, like, what's the alternative? Would have been depressed, drinking excessively. Again, we are in New Orleans, so, like, it kind of goes without it saying, but miserable at that. And so we had a good time, and I think it was just necessary to, like, remind ourselves of so many other wonderful things in life, that we have to look forward to. And we also talked about, like, one day at a time, and we just got to be together. We have to, like, inform each other of such, and then, like, distract each other and make each other laugh, because there is still life, and we have to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I do have another question. I didn't prepare you with this because we kind of have gone back and forth and talking about the people in our lives who are very conservative, and we get to these moments where we're like, well, surely this has to be a deal breaker. Like, are you seeing this Nazi salute? And it's really hard. I think it's the gaslighting too. How do we protect ourselves and not get sucked into every argument with people, whether it's online or in person?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying, like, I've looked at some other people's profiles that I know are not on our side. And, one of which was, well, are we going to actually go there? And this person posted, like, all of these pictures of all the Democrats that supposedly make the similar salute during conversations or during, like, whatever. And so I think that's, you can call it gaslighting, or, you are just so... let me think of a phrase. You are so married to your side, and you're so committed now that even faced with evidence, right, or something that's right in front of you, you will not cave. So we were having a discussion about POWs, and when Trump blatantly insulted John McCain and other prisoners of war. I think the statement was, like, I prefer guys that don't get caught or something. And I remember telling my friends, like, he's done. He is done. Like, all the active military and veterans and even first responders, like, okay, this is it. Like, whatever, like, this is the moment. He's absolutely done for. And I could not believe it. I just could not believe it. And you can try to reason with some people, and like a counter viewpoint, they think that we're brainwashed, right? And so, but either way, like it's just of course to us it's like so blatant. Like, okay, this was like he was a prisoner of war. He was a war hero. Like he highly decorated. Like he was a great man. I believe. We also talked about, like, I wrote to him and he wrote me back. Yeah, he was awesome, but. I'm like, how can you still support a president of the United States, right, that is insulting prisoners of war? Like, the two things, just like, in what world? In what world does that happen?
Yeah, no, it's gobsmacking is the best word I could probably use on the air rather than other language I might use. It's salty. So going forward, I think that, and so by the way, somebody just texted me what they love about New Orleans, and I think you probably have a long list. What I like about New Orleans: street names, neighborhoods, and the unique residential architecture, and which we have seen because of the snowstorm. This is not; these buildings are not custom. This is not. There are big chunks of ice everywhere. What are you hearing from some of your friends who are still dealing with the melting ice and snow?
They're ducking. Right, like ducking. Some people are walking around with umbrellas. The ice is falling. Very unique architecture. I agree. The street names will challenge almost anybody. Chapatulas, right? I learned it's not Burgundy. It's Burgundy.
Burgundy.
Right?
Okay.
It's Burgundy. Yeah, it's Burgundy. And so you get tested. Like, you can lose your NOLA card if you get that wrong. So what was the list? It was like architecture, street names,
and neighborhoods. The unique residential.
Excuse me. So unique neighborhood. We could go on. Yeah, it's just. Again, it's like Chicago. Every neighborhood has its own personality. Those are like fantastic things of NOLA.
Well, and the other thing, I may as well go ahead and tell folks that we were at Clyde's Corner bar, and we had our tarot cards read. Tell us a little bit about that idea of sort of blending spirituality and and just sort of like having a moment of unique exchanges, right? Personal interactions, whether it's stopping to listen to a band in the street, a little bit we're talking about self-care, but also that it's a very unique community. There's magic, there's spirituality, there's energy that is really hard to explain to folks. What would you say?
I would say this is the city where you take a very unique photograph. You are on, let's say, Bourbon Street, and you see musicians, and in the background is the CBD, what we would consider the downtown Chicago. So you see like the skyline, and then you see these musicians or this brass band. Like, again, it doesn't happen. And we ran into a tarot card, but you can run into politicians. You could run into bikers. You could run into goth people. You could run into anywhere, and everybody seems to get along. And there's this acceptance. Like, you could walk around with a tutu, and people do. You walk around with a big wig, a hairdress, horns, like a pink horns, tutus, bustiers, you name it. We were having this discussion too, right? Like my friends, and no one blinks, right? If you're wearing a top hat and a top cane and purple everything and glittery shoes, and it's like, what's up, right? And so it's all normal. So other cities have keep Austin weird, keep Portland weird. I don't even think we have to say that. New Orleans is weird, absolutely, but we don't even need to say it. Right. Because it's just right there, and you are welcome no matter what. And so one of the markers that just it just solidified my decision to move here permanently was I just sat down. I was thinking of moving here, and I interviewed at a hospital, and everyone's like, "Oh, are you a tourist? Are you are you from here? You don't I don't recognize you." And I said, "Oh, I just interviewed for a job. What do you do? Psychologist." And the entire bar, and I say entire bar, the entire bar went into networking mode. Oh, we know Dr. So-and-so. He's a psychiatrist at this place. What is your specialty? I can make I can text him right now. I can whatever. And I was just stunned. And they told me, honey, and that's the other beautiful thing about New Orleans, right? Yeah. Your honey, your baby, your boo, right? Hey, boo, right? Hi, love. That's my favorite to call people. Hi, love. Because you don't remember everybody's name, right? But everybody's love, honey, boo. My baby's a big one, too. He's like, that's how it's done, my baby, right? And it's not offensive, right? It's endearing. That's, again, the culture here. But, they're it's who you know, and everybody is helping everybody else out. And in a situation like this, people are bringing each other whenever they can, and slipping and sliding down the street, chicken soup, or they're helping with electricity, those that lost power. Not that many, luckily. But we help each other. We reach out to each other. So it is a great, beautiful, wonderful, silly community to live in.
What do you want folks to know about? Because living in a blue city in a red state. I mean, because when I was here last year, there's a lot of folks who are frightened of what's coming and sort of surrounded, right? As we weren't even talking to someone who was local when we had someone from Door County, basically flaunting it. I think that's the hard part. I think weathering through people celebrating this sort of cruelty that's coming down. I think that you're right. I think it's partly community. So tell us a bit about being there for each other on those levels.
I'll be honest, as a Mexican American, I'm first generation here. I don't leave NOLA. I don't leave New Orleans. And there are now there's exceptions, a couple of cities, right? Even across the pond. That are okay, right? But there is always that in the back of my mind, the further you go, the redder it gets. And there's gators. You got to, be careful. But I feel safe here. And when this all went down, I was terrified. I was terrified for my family, especially when they were going to go after naturalized, I think, who was it, Steve Miller? Naturalized citizens. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I'm like, okay, we got to move. We got to move to Mexico. We want to, I want to be on the fun side of Trump's wall. We want to be on a beach, blowing into the Corona bottles, right? That little commercial, if you remember. And I don't want to live in fear. And I lived in fear before, right? Dangerous neighborhood of the South Side at one point. And I'm like, I know fear. I don't want to live like that. And there's a thing called complex PTSD, right? So PTSD is what most of us think of, a life-threatening or highly emotionally charged event that is too sudden or not logical to process. Complex PTSD is prolonged distress. So multiple traumas and or prolonged distress. So let's say living with a narcissist counts, right? The way I describe it is like Hurricane Katrina is PTSD, and the aftermath is complex PTSD. So we're all in complex PTSD. So we are confused. I can't officially diagnose someone, but I would say I would phrase it this way: some psychologists would believe that Donald Trump is a narcissist. That's how I can say it. That some would strongly believe, right? I'm not saying it, but they would believe that he is, and so that's one of the maneuvers or the tactics that happen, right? Like they throw out a lot of different things to confuse you and to scare you, to intimidate you, and it's never ending. So you don't know what to get outraged at first. You don't know what to get afraid of first. You think they make you think that it's you, right? So it's always everybody else's fault, never theirs. They forget about taking accountability. They never, ever admit fault. Ever. And they don't do well with the word no. Saying no to a narcissist is like trying to remove a child from Chuck E. Cheese. I'm definitely aging myself now, right? Yeah, like trying to remove a toddler from Chuck E. Cheese. And so, yes, there's going to be periods of time. We already were there, a lot of fear. And so the thought, when this happened, my personal thought was I can't do another 4 years of this. This is emotional distress. We're under complex PTSD, but it's okay, there's choice. And one of the choices that I made for self-care is I had to limit how much exposure I had to hearing traumatic stories outside of work because I specialize in trauma. And so I need some boundaries, right, to just protect myself mentally. But also I remove the push notifications on my news app. I decide when I want to see the news. I decide, how much exposure, I have with it, and you just take it day by day.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I want folks to know about the books that you've written. Tell folks where they can find Facehooked and Untamed. Okay.
So my first book is called Facehooked, and it is on the psychology of social media. So the emotional effects and relationship, effects on your relationship and yourself and the way you see the world of social media. And the second book I wrote is called Untamed: The Psychology of Marvel's Wolverine. So it was a fun project. I interviewed the writers and the creators and the artists, many inkers as well, on the Wolverine character, and analyzed him as if he were a real person. And now, from time to time, I present at Comic-Cons on the psychology and mythology of superheroes and villains.
And where can folks find both of these books?
Amazon. Okay, so they're both on Amazon, and you could find me personally at NOLA Wellness in New Orleans.
Excellent. Before you go, I do want to let you know I got a text from my husband who says, when does your flight get in? I just want to be prepared for the sinkholes or mudslides that will surely occur when you arrive. But then he followed it up with, actually, I'm assuming we're immune in Chicago since you're from here and Trump already has us in his sights. So my husband's also apparently going on the side of bad luck for weather. Okay, then. That's Susanna Flores. I'll see you in a little bit. We'll be right back after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. Our phone lines are open, and so is the text line, 773-763-9278. More in a moment.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
There's so much that goes on behind closed doors.
On WCPT 820.
I am driving it home. This is Patti. I'm broadcasting live from New Orleans, where I came to sort of pace myself and set up for the next 4 years by enjoying good food, drink, company, and music. And then turns out I got a little bit stranded here, because not stranded, but they have had a historic snowfall, a huge storm on Tuesday, which is now continues to still cause problems in the city because a lot of streets are either on ice. They don't have salt trucks and plows to take care of that. And it's not simply getting around. It's also all the folks that keep things running, like the airports, the hotels, your Uber or taxi car drivers. So I decided I would come home on Saturday because tomorrow is going to be, I believe, chaotic since it has been pretty much at a standstill since the snow started falling on Tuesday. And I figured I would give myself another day and avoid some of that just madness. I got a text from somebody who said that the Netroots Nation is going to be here coming up in the summer. So maybe if folks want to do both, gather with like-minded progressives and enjoy the spectacular offerings of New Orleans from August 7th through the 9th. There will be just a wonderful gathering of progressives taking charge at Netroots Nation. You can go to netrootsnation.org to find out about their events coming up, again, August 7th through the 9th in New Orleans. That's exciting to know. Maybe I'll see if I have a way to join them as well. And the 773 says, so good to hear from you too, my friend. They say that they're glad to hear my voice, and we are going to be here, and I will stay safe. And tomorrow we'll have Elliot Serrano and Ken Mejia Beal filling in for me again. So I'm grateful to Ken and Elliot for doing that and filling in. Let's take a break here. We'll be right back after this with our good friend Gwen Levy. Gwen Levy and the Breakdown, of course, the singer-songwriter who brought us Barefoot and Pregnant. We'll check in and see how things have been going as she's been performing and traveling around the country. More after this on WCPT.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to drive it home. I am your host, Patti Vasquez, broadcasting live from New Orleans. I was planning on being home today for this show, but the weather had different plans. I'm down here for the most snow that New Orleans has had in over 130 years, and it's been quite the adventure. And I'm so grateful to the WCPT 820 in Chicago, Lady B, Matt Cummings, Tim Hogan, Mark Pinsky, everyone that has made it possible for me to broadcast from New Orleans today. And, of course, the fill-in hosts who have been keeping the conversation going, Ken Mejia Beal, Elliot Serrano, Adam Selzer. And I will be off again tomorrow because I'll still be in New Orleans. So Elliot Serrano and Ken Mejia Beal will be back in studio once again, shining a light on the madness that's unfolding. I want to say hi to our friends listening on KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota, because I'm so thrilled to bring everybody, our guest once again, Gwen Levy from Gwen Levy and the Breakdown. She's been performing at events in Nashville, doing events in Washington, D.C., the anti-inauguration ball. Gwen, how has the last week been for you, my friend?
It's been interesting. I've had a good week. It kind of started off as it did for you because of the snow that happened in Washington but didn't amount to what they expected. They canceled my flight to D.C., so I wasn't actually able to play the anti-inauguration Music and Arts Festival, even though I heard that they raised I heard they raised a good amount of money for abortion care centers and LGBTQ plus centers. So I'm really happy to hear that. But I think that they're going to have something like that again over the summer at Walsh Family Vineyards in Percival, Virginia. So I should be back up there over the summer to, headline like I was supposed to do on Monday. But I think the universe, was like, well, Glenn, Marcus, because Marcus was supposed to come with me, I think you are not supposed to be in D.C. at this time. And, I'm grateful because while I'm sad I wasn't able to play the festival, I was added to a Planned Parenthood fundraiser last night. And Carlene Carter, Carlene Carter, who is June Carter Cash's daughter and Johnny Cash's stepdaughter, she headlined, and I got to open for her at this Planned Parenthood fundraiser last night. And she was so sweet and took me backstage and said she loves Barefoot and Pregnant, especially loves the music video, and was just giving me some advice and just was like, let me mentor you, kind of thing. And I think we're going to stay in touch. So hopefully, she said when she has another show, she'd love for me to open for her again. So that was a silver lining, even though we weren't able to go to D.C. this week.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, congratulations. So well deserved. All the compliments, the support from people in your community, meaning the music industry, and especially legendary figures like she is with her family. Yeah. Well, because here I was thinking about this. I don't know if you saw this story out of Milwaukee. A weather reporter expressed their thoughts about Trump on social media, and the news station fired her. And we know as artists, like, would the path be easier within our circles? Our access to certain platforms, some perhaps be easier if we didn't want to hold people accountable and tell the truth, right? Do you have those moments of like, because you're a talented singer and songwriter, and you have a lot of pushback from what is typically a conservative arena, isn't it?
Absolutely. Being in Nashville, we're predominantly country music, even though we have many different other genres here now. But a lot of MAGA folks are in country music, as we've seen. And I've been friends with a lot of them. And, it's hard for me as an artist who is so outspoken, as you said, Patty, because while there was a lot of doors that did open to me because I wrote a pro-choice country anthem, I also had a lot closed on me. And, I have moments all the time where, if I didn't speak out or if I wasn't so outspoken, then this friend would still be talking to me again, or, this circle would be embracing me, or this wouldn't have happened. Or even, with Meta, a lot of people are leaving Meta. So I saw my followers dropping, and I was just like, what's happening? Is it the content I'm putting out? Is it because I am too outspoken? But I think it is because people are leaving Meta because they're so angry with the way that Mark Zuckerberg has, embraced Trump, going back on obviously what he said back in 2020 after January 6th. So, I think in many ways I would, be somebody in the industry right now if I wasn't speaking out, but at the same time, I don't think I would be who I am. And one of the biggest things Carlene Carter said to me that she actually said Johnny Cash said to her, was always trying to teach her, was to be your authentic self. And that's just what I'm trying to be, is to be my authentic self. And she even said, she's like, you may be, ostracized from some circles and not, doors won't maybe not fly open for you as quickly, but also she said it's also very damaging to not be true to who you are, even as an artist. So, I feel like I said, I go through that all the time, but I'm proud of myself for speaking out, even though like right now, especially maybe it's just today, I feel like emotionally exhausted, and
yep.
I just feel exhausted. Like all day, I've just been very tired, and I think right now, I'm hopeful because of the people I'm surrounded with and people who keep reaching out to me on social media and what they're saying and the encouragement, the support. But I'm just tired today, and just seeing all the. If I can read this, I mean, you might have already stopped me if you've already put this on your. I talked about this on your show, Patty, but, just within these past few days since Trump's been in office, these are the executive actions and orders that he signed. This is just his first day in office. He signed these. He attempted to end birthright citizenship for certain children of non-citizens. And I just saw good news is a federal judge blocked that. So hopefully that isn't able to go through. But as we know with these things, Trump has a way of pushing things through. He also made an executive order to only recognize only two sexes, male and female, for federal documents and policies. So, obviously eliminating the trans community that we have in this country. He's granted pardons for an estimated 1,500 January 6th criminal defendants. He began the withdrawal from the World Health Organization, which is very scary. He initiated withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement. As we all know, that's, taking back all the efforts that previous administrations have made to ensure that the United States is pushing towards, fighting global warming. And as you're seeing in LA with the fires, and obviously New Orleans, there's all this very extreme weather. That's very scary. He ordered federal employees back to full-time in-office work, but also said that he's revoking Biden's policy that allows transgender personnel to serve openly in the military. There's about over 16,000 openly trans military members who are now going to be losing their jobs, and he's been firing thousands of government officials as well. So, for a president that says, "Oh, I'm trying to create jobs," that doesn't sound like you're creating jobs there. So that was just his first day.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
He raised the prices on prescription drugs. It is a lot. And to your point about that, having to tell your truth and doing it the way that is right for you, I think such a brave example of that was the bishop who delivered the sermon the other day to his face. But the sermon was begging for mercy. And so the reaction from people when she was truly sharing the word of Christ, right, those teachings, that they took it as, woke, and she doesn't do a very good job, and she's a leftist, and she's a Trump hater, and they don't hear the begging. I mean, she's literally begging for mercy for people in the LGBTQ plus community, for families, for migrants. It is insane, and I bet you have the same problem I do when people who present themselves as being these Christians. And then have nothing whatsoever to say when horrors like this are unfolded, right?
Absolutely. And, some of those people were my friends, who were like, well, to me, money and the economy is more important than people having basic human rights. But I'm a Christian, so right. I'm voting different than you. And it's just the hypocrisy that they can't see what they're doing and, how hypocritical they're being. And, I'm not a Christian, but I have many friends who are Christian who couldn't vote for Trump because they are Christian. Like they are like, this goes against what Christianity teaches you, what Jesus teaches you. And so I know, a lot about it through them, and also just, my grandmother was Catholic. So, I grew up going to some church services with her, so I'm not, completely foreign to what you're taught to believe from the Christian faith. So, yeah, it's horrible the way they've treated this bishop who spoke so eloquently. And I actually texted Jerry. I don't know if he got a chance to tell you, but I had written a song based on her sermon. I was so inspired by it, especially when she said, "We were all strangers in this land," and I posted it with part of her sermon over the music, and then she reposted it, and we got to connect that way. And I just, I'm so happy within these past couple of days that she's been receiving such an outpouring of love, because she did post on her social media that she's planning on resigning and moving to Europe because of all the backlash, the hatred she's been getting. But I do hope she reconsiders. I understand, of course, the fear. I do not blame her at all for wanting to move after, being told, given death threats and being told such horrible things. And, she's like, well, my purpose here is to, spread the gospel and, be a good Christian. And this is really taking that away from me. And yeah, I think that for someone to be Christian and to put her down for literally spreading Christianity, is just, it's sad to me, but it doesn't surprise me, because that's just a reflection of who follows Trump and his followers. It's like just blindly following someone who is not, I'm just going to say it, he's not a Christian. He doesn't present those ideals. He definitely doesn't live them. Yeah. Like Dolly Parton says she's not but she lives her life as a feminist. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because that Donald Trump does not live his life like a Christian. Like there's so many examples of that. And, that maybe that sounds harsh, but I know there's people that agree with me on that.
Yeah, I have to agree. I agree with you. I mean, I think it's a complete misunderstanding. It's a hijacking of really beautiful teachings, whether or not you're a Christian, the ideas behind, love thy neighbor like you love thyself, and, forgiveness and helping the poor, the disabled, about the caring for the weak and the ill. They are so far from that. And just so folks know, Bishop Marianne Edgar Budd, I don't know how you pronounce it, if it's Budd or Boudet.
Boudet.
But, Boudet, she wrote a book called, of course, How We Learn to Be Brave, Decisive Moments in Life and Faith, which is available wherever you buy books. I think they're selling out, thankfully, supporting her.
Right.
And as you mentioned, I hope that she'll reconsider as well. And, when we think about how conservatives have hijacked religion, it's also patriotism. I was talking about I was at the World War II Museum on Monday and very much moved by, what this country, what this world went through. I mean, 65 million lives lost during World War II, more than 40 million civilians alone. And what we are on the brink of being in danger of sliding into fascism again. And a listener message, I feel very sad and forlorn thinking about my late father, a decorated World War II vet. He was wounded badly in Germany and returned to the front lines in 1945, and what he sacrificed so that we might be free. Don't you think it's insane to me that people who wave the flag and say we support our veterans and back the blue really, at the end of the day, don't care, do they?
From their actions, from what they're saying, I don't believe they care. I think the lack of empathy is so apparent with people who, are blindly following someone who is literally taking away the rights of people just because they don't understand them. I think the hatred comes from not being able to understand those people. You're not able to understand why somebody's trans or gay, or you're here as a migrant and you don't have the proper documentation for whatever reason. Well, there's so many factors into that. It doesn't make you a criminal. It doesn't make it a sin. The real sin is being hateful and not wanting to help those people. And I always also say, if you truly believe that someone is going to go to hell and all of these things because they're sinning, because you don't agree with them, well, isn't that for God to judge? Even Dolly Parton said that when she's asked about, having gay fans and having a gay base. It's well, I'm not here to judge other people. That's God, So I think, again, that goes into the hypocritical thinking that these people are unfortunately believing and led to believe. And then also, we can also say, we were talking about, oh my gosh, fighting Nazis. Well, what did Elon Musk do? And then they're defending him literally doing the Nazi salute and trying to say that, oh, it was a gesture of love. He didn't mean it like that, or it's a Roman salute. Well, the Nazis also, the Nazis also based it on the Roman salute too, and and he did it twice too. They cut out the video, but if you actually watch the whole video, he did it twice. He did it to the other side of the room too. So he knows what he's doing, and that's also why he's being. I think parts of Germany are banning him. I think Tesla's getting banned out there, is what I'm hearing too. So if the Germans are saying, "Hey, America, you're defending Nazis," then I think we should wake up and pay attention, don't you think?
I would think so. Yeah, I told the audience earlier there was several interviews with people in Germany. They were shown that video, and they were appalled. They were scared. One person said if you did that in Germany, you would be arrested. And here we are sliding into this. It's absolutely insane. And The other thing is, when you mention the rights of people to be who they are, to fulfill what they believe to be their true selves, and when we dismiss the trans population, I was telling the audience that I had a woman sit next to me at a bar, and she went off on I didn't even mention my politics. I swear, Gwen, I did not bring it up, but she was. She was from Door County, and she said that people in Chicago, because I said I was from Chicago, that we don't know how to vote, we have terrible government, that we're corrupt, we're broke, we're a mess.
Wow.
Oh yeah, she went. And I was just like, so I was very clear that I volunteer with Democrats in Wisconsin, and I said, one of the things I talk to young women about is how they almost went back to the 1850s with the trigger language in their legislation for abortions. And she said, that kind of bothers me, but I draw the line at men using women's bathrooms. Like that was her whole thing. It was, and so and one of our listeners wrote, I have a house in Door County, Wisconsin, and voted there last fall. They got 30 anti-trans mailings up there. 30.
Oh, my God.
They spent hundreds of millions of dollars across the country. Yep, that's all they spent money on was that issue. And she repeated it to me. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so she's like, I can't have men on or people that she thinks are men in female bathrooms, but I can allow, it's fine for like a predator to choose their baby mama, basically, like, they can rape someone or be a product of incest, and that's fine, being a victim of incest, and that's fine with them. It's the hypocrisy again. I want to protect women and girls, yet you voted for somebody who literally is a proven abuser, who like raped someone and assaulted women. Yeah. And it's just like, Patty, if I was there, I don't know what would happen.
Gwen, I relived it like a few times. She goes, I have a line in the sand, and I said, or I guess a penis on the body was all I could come up with, right? And so I just wish, honestly, all I should have said was, I didn't realize you're just dumb, and just turn around and stop talking to her. Like she doesn't deserve our energy, but I didn't do that either.
Exactly, and all it takes is to educate yourself. Like, listen, so when I first moved to Nashville, so I've been here 7 years, I didn't have any trans friends or people who I knew were trans friends. I had gay friends, other friends in the LGBTQ plus community, but I was, being transgender, that was very new to me. I didn't understand it. And I was dating someone at the time who unfortunately was using transgender slur, and I didn't know that was a slur. So when my friend was transitioning, she got very upset with me and said she needed space for me because I was using this word around her, and I had no idea that this was offensive. And of course I didn't mean it out of hate, or anything like that, but and she said, I need space from you while I am transitioning, and that kind of thing. And we're close now. We're good. But at the time, I was like, I told her, I said, I really am so sorry. I need to educate myself about this issue. I did not know. And what did I do? I went and educated myself, and I got better, and then I started to understand better, and that's all people have to do instead of living in their they're bigoted and hateful and racist and misogynistic bubbles. And I think it's a lot of these people, if I'm being very honest, it makes a lot of them uncomfortable because maybe there's something that they see in themselves that they're not allowed to express, So
maybe,
yeah. So that's why I say, like, people can educate themselves. Like, I've been wrong before, and that's so important, is to just educate. Education.
Yeah, exactly. And be there for each other and having conversations like this. We've been talking to Gwen Levy from Gwen Levy and the Breakdown. And where's the best place for folks to listen to your music and support your work?
You can find me at GwenLevyandtheBreakdown.com. That's the Levy with 2 E's, Levey. And Patty, I hope you're safe and warm.
I am. I'm with friends and I'm having as lovely as a time as I can. I look forward to getting home, but I'm certainly not. I'm not unhappy. Enjoying more food, music, and company with good friends. So, and again, getting to talk to you. Thank you for joining us, Gwen. I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know when you have something new or you just want to catch up with us. I mean, anytime. Our microphone is yours, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much and sending so much love to you.
You too. Take care. Be well.
All right.
That's Gwen Levy. Bye-bye. We're going to talk to Scott Stantis from the Chicago Tribune, cartoonist for the Tribune and other platforms in just a moment on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal, and KTNF AM 950, Minneapolis, St. Paul. So glad you're here.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to drive it home. I'm your host, Patti Vasquez. Lady B, Scott cannot hear me through the board. Scott, maybe check because you can hear the station, so I don't know why you wouldn't be able to hear me. Hold on. Maybe I have to do this. I'll just talk to you through our Zoom call and have our conversation. How are you doing today, Scott?
I'm doing great. How are you? This is weird. This is. I know
there might be a little bit of an echo. I'll try to fix that on my end, but hopefully we'll figure it out during the show. And because you're not hearing me, if I turn my mic off here, you can't hear me through the board. Okay,
and that's almost always my fault. So give me a second.
No worries. We'll figure it out. I wanted to ask Scott on to catch up with him a little bit, and I also was curious because I am seeing so many people on social media celebrating and being very exuberant about our new our second term with Donald, and I was wondering what that is like in Scott's part of the world, neighbors and friends who wanted to bring this upon us once again. So how are you doing, Scott? How are you sort of making your way through this new administration?
I'm not great. It's been it's hard because it's I'm always loath to use. You love history. I love history. Some things in history are singular. Some are not. But when Hitler ascended to power, when he finally got the majority in the Reichstag, he did exactly what Donald Trump is doing right now, which is bum rush as many bat crap crazy pieces of social and civil liberties eroding legislation as they possibly could to get through. And that's exactly what's happening now. I mean, when you have no birthright, you can't have birthright. No birthright. I can't do it. I can't do them. But no birthright. No birthright. That's in the Constitution. You can't just say, you can't do it. But, his legislature, is saying, yeah, sure, go do it. Have fun. Knock yourself out. Constitution, smonstitution. Who cares? It's what Donald wants, and it's frightening to watch. It really and truly is.
I agree. It's interesting you mentioned Hitler and Mussolini, and I was in the museum, the World War II museum, as Elon Musk was actually on stage. We got the clip right away while we were walking. Someone sent me the Nazi salute. And it's chilling to think, what the level of catastrophe, of harm that was worldwide. Over 40 million civilians, 65 million lives lost during World War II, and how apparently people are so eager to bring that kind of pain, suffering, violence by dehumanizing. I mean, that's essentially it's that power grab. It's doing it through wanting to control people, dehumanizing, whether it's by religion or race or ability, right? Things like that. That I just seeing the glee come from folks is really strange.
I was watching one of the college playoff games, and they're talking to some old guy, and he was talking about, America's going to be, according to our commander-in-chief, America's going to be greater than ever. And I swear, as gross, I thought he was having an orgasm. I mean, maybe his first in 20 years. But I've never seen this level of rapture for the ascent of a politician. This is a cult. We've said it before. You were right. You were as right as rain back in 2015, 2016 when we first started talking about this guy. And I was wrong as can be. And I'm, obviously watching what I've watched and seeing what I've seen. You are as right as you have ever been. And this is one of the weirdest episodes in the history of this country. I mean, you're a history lover. I am too. I cannot think for a moment any other example of this. Andrew Jackson comes close, but that's about it. And Andrew Jackson, by the way, was a monster. He didn't just own slaves. He traded slaves. That means he broke up families. He literally bred human beings for sale. That's the kind of president we're comparing this current president to.
Yeah, it is. It's shocking to the system, to the sensibilities, I guess, in general. My heart hurts for so many people who are scared, people who are already, alone, the idea that he is blocking the ability to negotiate for prescription prices and bringing them back, like lifting the cap. Like, what are we even doing? Well, thank God, those egg prices sure came plummeting down, didn't they? When the first things you do is decide, as you mentioned, birthright, citizenship, and things like that. Families who are scared to send their kids to school because they're not sure if they'll get picked up at school or they'll be separated while they're away from each other. Just to name a few of the horrors that are coming. What did you think, before we take a call from a listener, what did you think about the bishop's the sermon that she gave to him, Booty, and what were your thoughts? I mean, because that really is, and you've talked about this where you come from. As a Republican, the values that you have, you felt at one time aligned more closely with the Republican Party. She wasn't saying anything horrifying or radical. She was begging for mercy. Well, how is that so radical?
Because it's not. Because it is radical. Because 2,000 plus years ago, a humble carpenter suggested we treat each other, that all those commandments are null and void. 2 commandments: love thy God, and love thy neighbor as thyself. We can't seem to do either one. And for him to be offended by this, Patty, this is happening in church after church after church after church, where parishioners, and this is coming from priests and reverends, Protestant and Catholic, and the parishioners are coming up to him, where are you getting that liberal crap? I mean, why are you spewing that? He says, I'm reading it from the Bible. This is what Jesus expected of us. That's why, and so for Trump, and his reaction has been so over the top. I love it. He says so-called bishop. She's a bishop. What does that mean? You're a so-called president. Well, okay, he's a so-called human being, but that we could debate that. Really? And I do want to correct you. I do want to correct you. I'm a recovering Republican.
Right. Okay. Recovering. Okay. Not former, just recovering.
I hold hope. I know it's faint. I don't see it changing in a generation. I don't. Right. I mean, even when he meets his maker and finds out just how wrong he was on so many things, I think the Republican Party will continue down this path because it works. Fear, anger.
Yes. And it works, and it's so deeply entrenched in so many of our state legislatures, right? Capitals around the country that have already implemented elements of Project 2025. And I know one of the things that you, worked very hard to communicate with folks is that your stand on abortion. And we've discussed how, not even in your wildest dreams, having some restrictions would lead to the deaths of women. Who are in need of health care. I don't know if you're aware that there are states like Texas, Georgia, where they are not tracking maternal mortality. They don't want people to know when a woman dies because she didn't have access to abortion care.
Well, so in addition, they're tracking women who are their pregnancies, if they get pregnant. It's so Orwellian. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If they travel. I mean, it's like what instead of the metal detectors, they have ovary detectors, I guess, and just I have no idea how you can enforce this. It makes the TSA agents, that changes their their job a lot. No, and even on abortion, Patty, yes, I oppose it. And I always felt, and I don't know if I voiced this or articulate this enough to you, I was always afraid to legislate it because I knew that as soon as the crowd that wanted to outlaw it got into and got the laws passed, you would have what you're having now in Texas. You have it here in Alabama. You have it in other states where it is this draconian, dystopian view of women and and so on abortion, I wish you wouldn't. I mean, it breaks my heart, but I don't know. And it sounds like I'm tap dancing my position back, and maybe I am. Okay, I'm still thinking this through and still considering it and pondering.
There's the former president of Planned Parenthood, the Federation of America, passed away after a battle with brain cancer, and a conservative legislator out of Minnesota said she's where she belongs in hell. This is her statement after a woman died. And my thing is, I released a quick response to that on heartlandsignal.com that, Planned Parenthood saved my life. I had precancerous cells when I was in my 20s, and I probably would not have even gotten a pap smear in the first place if I didn't have access to Planned Parenthood, which at the time I didn't have health insurance. You didn't have that policy of being on your parents' insurance. So here I was, 22, 23 years old, and they had to have these cells frozen off my cervix. Saved me from because chances are I would have put off going to get screenings, much less treatment. $119 about was what I paid in 1994 to save my life and have the ability to have two beautiful boys. But I posted this video and people are like, Planned Parenthood's done way more harm by killing babies. So this is the mentality that we have.
Well, I think there was some element of the pro-choice movement that made me very uncomfortable and was, abortion no matter what. And can we meet and say that under some circumstances, yes, and under some circumstances, no. But for the most part, especially, the first trimester and especially the health care provisions that Planned Parenthood provided, not just to you, but to millions of people, men and women, by the way, who is also, I can tell you in high school, you could not, getting a contraception, you had to, this is a true story, kids, all of you youngsters out there, you had to go to the pharmacy, condoms were behind the counter, and inevitably the pharmacist was a woman who was roughly the same age as your grandmother.
Right.
And so going up there, it was mortifying to go and get birth control, but you knew you could go and get them there. What's happening to women now? The fact that, the Attorney General of the United States is, when you're divorced twice, your spouses and their families are saying you're an abusive piece of goza, which is, I probably can't say in China, but I can say on this show. Got that from Firefly, by the way. And he's going to be the Attorney General and executing these laws. And so, yeah, I draw for the Dallas Morning News, as you know, and their Attorney General is a real piece of work. He missed being impeached by one vote and now is going after the guy because he is corrupt and he is horrible. And he's going after the women who want to exercise some semblance of freedom. And he's the one who's pushing these Texas laws, and he's the one who's supporting them, and he's the one who's helping draft them. So, that's what we're dealing with now, folks. And there's a lot of – here's what I want to say to your listeners, if I may, Patty.
Of course.
The first go-around in 2017 was the great what did they call it? The Great Revolt. And it wasn't that great, and it didn't last that long, and it should have. Now they're calling this the Great Resignation because people are just like, well, he won. This is it. This is what we're going to have to deal with. No. Damn it. No. No, 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 no. Don't sit, if you're listening to my voice, honestly, don't sit back because it seems hopeless. It's such an uphill climb right now. You're dealing with, you're dealing with monsters. You're dealing with people who will go after you. And, they've been very clear about that. Mm-hmm. If I may go back to what Jesus said on several occasions, and it's very nurturing and helpful. Be not afraid. If you're on the side of righteousness, don't be afraid. Go and do what has to be done. Protest what has to be protested. Work on campaigns and fight this battle. Because believe me, in the next 6 months, you're going to see some real horrors in this country. You're going to see internment camps. Think about it for a moment. Internment camps, Patty. I mean, concentration camps. And I'm not using that word. A concentration camp is, guess what? Concentration of a group of people being held against their will. The concentration camp. And you're going to see those. And everyone is thrilled. Not everyone. I'm sorry. Right. MAGA Nation is thrilled to death. And, the problem with that, yeah, it's those brown people. But guess what? Even if you don't have a soul and don't care about that, guess who's next? You, your family. You don't need to vote. Why should you need to vote? Everything is just Jake. No. Sorry, I'm energized. I'm a very different person than I was a year or so ago.
Well, I think we're going to continue to support each other and remind each other of why we're fighting for this. We're hanging out with Scott Stantis, political cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune, as well as the Dallas Morning Star. And you can find his work at gocomics.com and other sites. You want folks center clip also? Yeah,
smirkonish.com on his Saturday morning CNN show. I do work for him. So, yeah, I'm everywhere.
Everywhere. Well, let's take a break here. We have a listener who wants to join our conversation. We'll take that call when we come back.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
And I am broadcasting live from New Orleans as we continue to drive it home, but I can't fly home yet till the flights all get straightened away after this massive snowstorm. Of course, we're broadcasting also on KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I'm grateful for everyone back in Chicago at WCPT 820. Don't forget, folks, you can also check out all of our shows on TuneIn if you want to hear us live through the streaming app. We also have all of our shows available for podcasts, including some highlighted interviews available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including your Spotify's, your Apple Podcasts, all the places. And joining me is Scott Stantis, the political cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune. I know we have a listener who's been on hold for a bit. Let's talk to Paul from Seattle. Scott.
Cool.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Patty, I thought you wanted to get away from the snow.
Come on, Paul.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so listen, I don't want to hear any more bishops begging Donald Trump. And I'll tell you why. First of all, there's two reasons. So first of all is theologically, Jesus never begged. And he certainly never begged evil not to be evil. And he didn't beg evil not to hurt people. Jesus simply stated it. And a bishop should simply state the gospel message. That's it. And leave it to this so-called president to either pick on it or not. The other thing that's more important than that even is that this Trump MAGA movement is a cult of hostility. And what that means in psychological terms, hostility isn't just meanness. Hostility is a perversion. It's a hostile person gets a kick out of watching other people suffer and certainly watching them beg them not to hurt them. This is what murderers do when they torture people. You're so scared, and they're getting a kick out of it. And this is what Donald Trump does. He gets a kick out of his whole base is watching him. So show no fear, actually. Now, a clergy person should not be trying to choose him off because Jesus didn't do that either. Said, Pilate said, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He said, "You say I am." He's not getting smart. and that's not what clergy should do. But that doesn't mean that I can't do that. See, I'm a fighter, and so I'm about done being depressed about the election. I'm this. You want to fight? Let's fight. Because if we don't, these kinds of people, let me tell you something. I used to hitchhike a lot.
Oh.
And back in the 70s and 80s, and I've had a few close encounters. And one thing I learned is that you never show that you're afraid or you think this person is getting to you. Never show that. As a matter of fact, you might say, at one point I did say to a guy who was starting to bother me, you ever picked up a crazy person? He said, why? What do you mean? I said, you know, you never know what kind of crazy nut you can pick up. I'm surprised you picked me up, honestly. You don't know me. You don't know what kind of person I am. And then the guy started going, I started thinking twice about who's the nut here, right? And so I really don't think that we should be begging, showing fear, is that he's going to get resistance, and he's going to overplay his hand. I mean, Donald Trump is going to he's going to take it as and who cares that the MAGAs think that, it's a so-called bishop. The first thing he does when you show any respect is demean her office. When she begs, what does he do? He demeans her office by calling her a so-called bishop. Well, she's a bishop or she isn't. He's a so-called president. He's a so-called human being.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do that. Anybody can play that number. But no, Donald Trump, we already know what kind of animal we're dealing with here. I mean that both literally and metaphorically. But no, I'm not for playing. I'm not for playing nice with this guy. I mean,
let me ask you real quick, if I could, if I may. Okay, so cult of hostility, which I love, that's brilliant. But how do you combat this as being in the opposition in a democratic society? I'd say civility may be out the door, but how do you combat this? Well, I think combat is part of it. Combat is part of it. It's got to, because this group, and I listen to right-wing radio, they are loving this. They're not backing off. They want to push it more. They'll do more if they think they can. Yep. This is the kind of people that you give them an inch and they will take a parsec. They will take a mile. They will take 1,000,000 miles. There's no giving. So I think what's going to have to happen, I'm sorry, that things are going to have to get worse before they get better, but it's going to have to come down to the point where this is not worth it to them either. I mean, if they just want to get nasty, it's kind of like when you're being bullied. My dad taught me, listen, there was a guy in the neighborhood who bullied me, and my dad said, Paul, you're going to have to stand up to him, Mike. You're going to have to stand up to him. And I said, but Dad, I'm afraid. And he said, well, yeah, I know. And you know what? You might lose the fight. That's right. But he's got to know that you're willing to fight. And he said, by the way, you got big brothers who are bigger than Mike Holland is. And you don't seem to be afraid to go after them when they're bugging you, right? And I said, that's true. He said, yeah. So, and finally, the guy made me so mad that I went ape crazy on him and never had a problem with him again. But I said that. My dad said, that's right, Paul, you might lose the fight. Yeah, you might. But he's got to know that he's going to have a fat lip or a black eye if he's going to do that, if he's going to terrorize you.
Right.
And
well,
that might not be working to him.
Right. Well, that's always been the thing is that retaliate. They retaliate and we just go, well, we were better than that. Thank you so much for calling, Paul. I've got to wrap up the show in a moment. So it's good to hear from you and talk to you again soon. Have a wonderful evening. And Scott, tell folks where they can find more of your work. I want to thank you so much for jumping on. It's good to see your face and hear your voice.
Oh, it's good to see you too. Always. Yeah. Always. You're like the sister I never had. So yeah, I mean that. Just go to gocomics.com, Scott Stannis, gocomics.com, Prickly City. You can go to chicagotribune.com, see the work I do for them. Go to Dallas News, see the work I do for them. Go to smokonish.com, see the work I do for them. And then your life will be complete.
Well, you are also a good brother, and that's it. And the brother that I never had, even though I have a brother. So, although he's full in on MAGA.
Oh, is he really? Oh,
Oh,
So
but
is
we were
my-
never. It's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, so is my brother. Okay, sorry. We'll compare brothers.
That's all right. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, everyone listening everywhere where you find our show, whether it's on TuneIn or KTNF or YouTube and Facebook. And, of course, thanks to our friends on KTNF AM 950. Lady B, thank you for holding down the fort. Randy Rhodes is up next. Follow Matt McNeil, Elliot Serrano, and Ken Mahil will be in for me tomorrow. Night, everybody. Love you. Talk to you next week.